declaring your declaring interest, and switch off your mobile phone, and also turn your tablets to mute by pressing Fn key and the F8 key. Today's business, members, we are going to have an evidence session in October, monitoring RAN with the officials coming, and also briefing on the fact-finding visit to Metabolen and the veto sites in Germany and Belgium, and also a briefing on the road traffic amendment from the PSNI. So we have no apologies so far? No. Okay. Then we moved on then, chairperson's business. Just to remind the committee that next meeting next week will be replaced by a visit to the archaeological archives at Swords, and I refer members to the draft itinerary, which has been tabled. Members, let's have a quick look at it. In your table pack, what page is that? First page? 3. Yeah, page 3. A request, let's see. We are leaving at 3:30.
On the side.
Well, I'm sure we can leave a little bit later, Alvin, if it suits you better, say 4 o'clock.
I'll let you know, Chair.
Yeah. There's Albans in the DOJ committee. I'm sure others would have other committees too. Would it suit members if we say leave at 4 even? We'll be done for 6ish in time, still for 7:30 dinner.
We're going with the Cal committee as well,
right.
so we'll have to make sure that's okay.
All right, okay. So it will be a coach to take us? Yeah, okay. So, all right, we say then 3:30 if anyone.
I'll say
thinks it may be
3:30 and I'll come back if it's okay with the Cal committee to change it to 4. Would that be okay?
Yep.
That would maybe suit better. Okay, and then we are staying in the Buswells Hotel. Is that everyone staying there? You were saying
No,
no.
we couldn't get sufficient rooms in Buswells. Some people are staying in the O'Callaghan and Alexander Hotel, which is around the corner. So
Okay.
And there's a bus shelter.
All right. Okay, that's fine. Then the next day, and we'll be back 4 o'clock the next day. So, yeah. Okay, members, happy with the arrangements? All right. Then next item is that we have received a request from Ursula Walsh. Members will remember she was appointed our special advisor for the inquiry on wind turbine. So she has asked if it is possible to distribute copies of her report prior to the publication of our own committee report. Members, I certainly feel that may not be appropriate, because obviously that's our own report, and we really would want to keep the details of the report until we are ready and publish the whole report. So I'm afraid I think we would have to say to her, and it will be only another 2 months or so towards the end of probably end of October, November. We'll be thinking of publishing it anyway. So, okay, members, happy with that?
Yes.
Yep. Minutes, okay, of our meetings on 11th and the 18th at page 6 and 16. Members, are you content with the minutes? Approved?
Great.
Okay, thank you. Item 4, matters arising. Members, a number of them. I'll go through quickly. Responses from Castlereagh Borough Council and Omagh District Council about their waste recycling policies. Remember, members, we wrote to all the councils and asked them to give us their statistics of recycling. So, members, are you content to note, and we forward this information to Zero Waste Northwest, who originally asked for this information? Okay. Are there any other councillors we still haven't received information
I
yet?
think there may be 2 or 3.
2 or 3.
I think
Yeah,
there's still
well,
2 or 3.
when they come along, we just do
Just
the same
automatically
thing.
do
Yeah.
the same thing.
Yeah, for members to note and send forward. Okay, next item, 4.4, response from the department about the use of reconditioned wind turbines in Northern Ireland. Members, if you recall, that this was raised by Ursula Walsh in her findings in her report on wind turbines. The department says that it's not aware of the use of reconditioned turbines in Northern Ireland. Members, I'm not kind of way, or don't know. They said they are not aware of it. I don't know whether they would need that sort of information in the planning application. And I just wonder if we should write to NIRIC and ask them if they are aware of it. Because that is quite an
To
important...
the chair, I mean, clearly the process, certainly in building and construction, I mean, the building control officer, I mean, there has to be somebody who goes out and checks to see whether or not it's appropriate, or you know, I mean, there has to be some regulation to say that this building has been built properly, you know, into a certain standard. So somebody,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought certainly it was planning service. Not that it wouldn't be their job. They give planning permission.
Yes.
Whether to building control officer, the arts need.
Although I would say, you know, when they are putting in the application, that they should say what models they should be using. You know, that would be in the details of the application. But
But I know it's left. It leaves planning service. You're correct. I would say that they would have to stipulate that, but it's
so, you know, the
other body.
planner should be able to pick it up and say, oh, this sounds like old models. I suspect would be the recondition one would be mostly from individual, you know, a farmer putting up a wind turbine and buying it second hand, rather than, you know, a big wind farm. If they're investing so much money, it's inconceivable that they're buying
Sure, it has to be
cheap,
built.
you know, reconditioned ones.
It has to be built to a certain standard, but
Yeah,
irrelevant of what type it is.
yeah,
There's regulations for standard. You know.
absolutely. Pam, yes.
Chair. No, I think we have more questions than answers going back from this letter, so I think it would be good to
I
write
think
to NIRIC and try and get some more information, because, you know, you would imagine that the model numbers and makes and whatnot is included in any planning application,
Yeah.
but how do you know that, you know, do we know that that's actually checked, that
Yeah,
that is the make and model is actually installed? So I think it would be good to get a bit
Yeah.
more information and to see what,
Yeah.
if there are reconditioned turbines being used, what difference does that make? What impact does that have on noise levels and
Yeah.
whatnot? So I think
yes.
we would need
Yes.
to get some information on it.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, the newer the model, the quieter they are.
Yeah.
You know, because people are aware, or manufacturers are aware of the complaints about noise levels. So, you know, with new technology, we've been told that the new ones are quieter. So, yeah, yes,
I mean, I think that's the key, is the noise level, the impact that the wind turbines having. But if the department has those regulations in place and those are checked, you know, that the noise levels are double checked, and I think they've said in the letter that that is what they check. They check the noise and other impacts. You know, so that, I suppose that's the key. That's the answer. And if the regulations are tight enough, you know, if they are reconditioned, then if they're too noisy, they're too noisy. Isn't that right?
yes. I suppose that's their point. There's a noise level when they go out, okay, whether they're in condition or not.
Yeah.
But you would think, you know, if it's a wind farm,
Well, if I'm going to buy a car,
setting,
you know, I won't want the government to tell me if I'm buying a second-hand car, you know, it's gone through its MOT, so it's got those regulations checked. They're not going to tell me if I should buy a Ford or a Volvo, do you know?
I know. Yeah. But you strive for excellence, you know, when you think if it's a brand new wind farms being set up, they would go for the top quality and the newest technology.
To the chair, somebody has to sign off on that. There has to be some regulation, somebody has to sign off. Any building, any construction is actually a certificate and you signed off. Building control officer and two councils do that job, and the other construction. So, you can't just give planning permission if somebody constructs a wind turbine and then that's it. Nobody goes out and checks to see we're safe or anything else or built to a certain standard. So, we need to ascertain who that is. I mean,
We'll go back and ask more questions then. Yeah. Okay, and see what the responses are. Maybe then, after that, if the responses are not good enough, we'll maybe write to NIREC, ask them about that too. Okay, I think that's an important revelation, that we set, when people build wind turbines, actually conditioned second-hand turbines. Yeah, I suppose like all things people do buy second-hand cars and second-hand fridges, although I wouldn't buy a second-hand fridge, mind you. Yeah. Okay, next item, 4.5, page 29, members. There's a report there, the wind turbines in Denmark report. We requested a copy of this report during the briefing from the specialist advisor, Ms. Walsh. Then members should content to look this report, and we include it in our inquiry report.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you. Next item is 4.6, departmental sickness absence at page 61. Members, we asked for this information in terms of working hours lost due to sickness absence, so it's clearly set out there. Members, at page 61. Members, you content to note?
Content.
Okay. And the next item, 4.7 at page 63, departmental reply regarding the House of Lords Committee inquiry. The department says that they are not proposing to respond to this inquiry. So members, should content to note? I think we'll just skip this ourselves as well. Okay, yes. So next item, 4.8, is the Marine Strategy Framework Directive at page 64. The department has provided details of the UK marine monitoring programs, and that the Northern Ireland Marine Monitoring fact sheet will be available next month. So it will be based on, I think, the information from the whole UK-wide monitoring program. So we look forward to that. Members, you content to note?
Great.
Okay, next item is 4.9 at page 65. That's the updated timetable of subordinate legislation relating to the Local Government Act. We asked for this information. Members, have you any comment to this? There's certainly an awful lot there to know. There's a large raft of SAOs are coming our way on this. The thing is, they really have to do it fairly quickly. Only a few months to go before the 1st of April. So members will keep an eye on this.
Yeah, just through the chair we would do need to keep an eye on, because clearly there's some parts I think will have to go out to consultation at some point.
Yes.
And the time frames is run very tight now.
Very, yeah.
Need to keep an eye on it,
Yeah. Okay. Any particular ones you want to ask the department? Happy enough? Okay, we're keeping a close eye on this.
Yep.
Okay, members, next item is COE infraction update, and that's tabled. Members, the department has sent us this and want us to be treated as confidential. So let's see, is this the one in the just handed to us earlier? This
Yeah, it's a
in
separate
your envelope. Yeah. Okay. 4 new items, apparently. If I could give member a couple of minutes to have a quick read on this. Okay, members, I'm very surprised to read this. The Water Framework Directive is saying their action proposed and underway. The last column there, page 10. UK submitted further response through European Commission in July 2011. A meeting between UK lawyers and the Commission Legal Service was anticipated before end December 2011, but the meeting has yet to be arranged. Position and change. We know of this problem for some time now. Maybe we ask the department for maybe further on this, and this is on our freshwater quality. We're still way down the good status required of us of 59%. We are standing at about 29% still. So maybe we ask a bit more on that. A lot of them are UK-wide transposition, obviously, depending on DFT and we're glad to see the Habitat Directive. The risk seems to have been removed. Which one is it? The Habitat Directive. Let's do the Habitat Directive, the pilot.
Chair, could we revisit this? I mean, it's very, to be honest, just be noned with it and try and read through it.
Okay.
Important issue. I mean, we need to have a look through it and come back to it. Try and read. But here, I don't think we have enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Well-
because there's some issues raising heads there we need to ask questions about, you know. So,
Okay.
to be fair,
members, and we bring this again next week.
I think
Are we
so.
allowed
There's a
to
chance
take
to get
this
through it.
back to the office?
Yes, I suppose you could.
I'm sure we
But
Yeah.
treat it obviously with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll discuss this next week. It's a bit rush.
Next week.
No, the following week.
Following week,
The
yeah.
following week.
Okay.
Not discuss it in Dublin.
I thought you were going to do it on the bus or something.
2 hours drive, yeah, we can make good time. Yes. Yes, committee business, yeah. Okay, that's a good idea, yeah. Particularly maybe new members who are maybe not very familiar. Would it give you a bit more time, Sandra, to look at it? Yeah. Okay, we moved on then. Next one is 4.11 update from the Minister on the Commissioner for Complaints at page 79. Members, you all probably recall that during the further consideration stage of the local government bill, the Minister proposed to bring forward a second bill to provide for an adjudication function separate from the Commissioner for Complaints. The Minister has now indicated that followed his legal advice, he is content that the current ethical standards framework can operate without further amendment and that it will no longer be necessary for the Department to introduce a second local government bill. So in fact it actually suits us better because we had kind of tried to allow a gap in our road traffic amendment to look at this bill. So now at least we are not under as much pressure. So we may have a bit more time to look at the road traffic amendment bill.
That sounds all right.
So it's going to go through to us probably through an SL1. Yep. Members, any comment on this?
No, Chair, I know that Mr. Weir had brought this issue up. No, as long as we just keep check, make sure that we're bringing it forward. You know, we'll deal with the issues that, and obviously Alban has also raised.
Yes.
We'll just
Yes.
need to keep an eye on what we're looking for to bring forward.
Oh, here he comes.
You know, certainly.
But it's good, Chair, it's been resolved.
Yeah.
Very, very helpful.
Yes. Because I know the Commissioner was very concerned about
was, yeah.
maybe that could be a challenge to his constitutional status and you know and conducting investigation in other areas as well. So, okay. Members then content to note this? Peter, any comments on this?
No.
Okay, you happy with that? Okay. No, you just, you were outside
No, sorry, I
of
had
the
to
room.
wait for a minute or two to
Yeah,
get something.
yeah, okay, fine. Just want to maybe mention to members perhaps, or suggest to you that rather than me going through matters arising item by item, we do it like the format of correspondence. Just put them at the table for members to just look at it yourselves, and if you know there are anything that I need members, you know, particular discussion or you know that I'll raise it. If not, it'll be set in a table just to glance through. Most of them are ready for members to note. But if there are actions required, we'll highlight that. Members be content with that?
Great.
Yep. Okay. So next one is consultation. Members, remember last week during our planning session we said that we will do it again in this new format, setting them out and table. That's at page 84. So consultations are now on block, being looked at rather than for me to read it all out.
Yeah.
Okay, members, you contend with that new format? It's actually easier to look at.
It is.
Yes.
Okay, so are you content? We'll request a synopsis of responses for all these consultations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agreed, Chair, with that format, and that's fine. It's just we just need to keep an eye on if there's something significant this committee needs to look at, or
Yes.
if there,
Yeah. The staff will flag it up
Yeah,
if there's
just flag it
something
up,
we need a discussion, or
That's
we
fine,
need, members
Okay.
comments or further information, or and we can ask for a briefing too if we want to.
Okay.
Okay, members. Next item, item 6, SL1s. First one is at page 142, the proposed amendments to the motor vehicles driving licenses regulation. The main purpose of this statutory rule is to reduce fees paid for theory tests due to a contract renegotiation with the theory test provider. It will also introduce a provision to revoke or declare invalid a test pass certificate which has been issued in error or fraudulently. It is proposed that the statutory rule will come into operation at the earliest opportunity, and the regulation will be subject to the negative resolution procedure. I think that's to be welcomed.
Yeah.
That's good news.
That's a
for
good
all.
news story for a change.
For a change, yes, yeah. Okay, members, are you content for the department to proceed with making the rule? Okay. Then next item, if I can refer members to items then 7 to 9 on pages 146 to 158, which are SL1s for a raft of them. So page 146. Okay, we have there the good vehicles testing amendment regulations, the motor vehicles vehicle testing regulations, and the public service vehicles regulations. Members, the purpose of all three SL1s is to remove the requirement for goods vehicles, private vehicles, and public service vehicles to display an MOT test disc. So we don't need to display that the Durand disc anymore. It is proposed that the statutory rules will come into operation on the 6th of April next year, and the regulations will be subject to the negative resolution procedures. So members, you contend for the department to proceed with making these rules? I think these changes are all to do with changing over DVA then to Swansea, and they're all now computerized, and police have records and can have at the fingertip call up their information through the IT system from Swansea. So we don't need to get that little disc. So Peter,
Yeah, no, Chair, I mean, I'm not going to object to the rules at all. I understand, in one sense, the rationale, and I understand as well as part of a wider picture in that regard. I'm just wondering from that bit, I mean, what do we require? Are the department and the police content enough that this will mean that the same level of bearing
detection,
down on in terms of detection and where people are, I'm just saying if you take something which is visible and remove that, okay, I appreciate now we're in the era where you can punch in a computer, although I have to say those are not always entirely infallible in that regard.
It's so easily seen, when you have a disc and I'm just
conscious that possibly less even in terms of the detection side of it, as opposed to maybe just a little bit of concern will that mean if you feel that they can get away without putting it through? Oh well, I'll not get detected. You know, it's less obvious or whatever. And just have that slight degree of conscious quality in that. And just, I don't know if there's a wee bit of, as I said, like I'm not standing in the way of any of the SL1s going through. You know, whether there's a wee bit more information we get off the department just to come back to us to say, look, here's what additional measures we'd be taking to ensure that there is. That maybe that's contained within some of the stuff on that.
I know. It's the mindset saying, oh, well, I don't need to display it. My neighbours won't see that I haven't got the disc. Or, yeah. We'll ask more question. How are they going to cope with it?
The list of people paying.
No problems with them?
We text them.
Okay. With the police coming here today, we can ask the police.
I mean, yes,
They have any problem with it?
I appreciate what's happening. As I said, I'm not going to oppose any of the stuff on it, but I think it'd be helpful to have that wee bit of reassurance that there would be proper sort of additional bits of detection and ensuring that there isn't that degree. Because I mean, like there's reason. It's not just the fact that everybody's playing by the rules. It's also if there are cars out there that are, you know, at a stage which they shouldn't be on the road, that can create a safety danger. I think for you know, with the people in that. And, I don't know. I was bleeding from the nose at the prospect of whether.
And it's known. I think it's known in Northern Ireland. We do have the higher rate of people not having insurance, car insurance, driving without car insurance, their car insured. So maybe that's also. Well, then we can ask questions later on, and ask the department and ask them about it. Maybe ask them to send us. We do have the responses from the police. We're saying they have no objection.
No, on page 150, the police make up a quorum.
Okay.
They were consulted, and the members of the forum had no issues with it.
Okay.
Chair, I was just going to ask in relation to this. Will there be any change in relation to the MOT certificate? And there is an obligation to display that.
This is the MOT certificate.
This includes all that,
Includes
everything.
Yes.
And so it extends right across all classes of vehicles.
Yeah.
So, what about it? So there will be no MOT certificate given?
No.
In a paper form?
You'll still need to do the test, sir. I mean,
They still ask you to go and do the test, would they? Would they send you an email to ask you to do it?
They give you the new three-part paper form of the MOT certificate. Had an SL13 for that a short time ago.
They'll give us
That's right. I remember that.
practical point of view. Somebody doing it will do the test, and they will then get sent a three-part paper.
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, because the other issue in that will be then, if people, for instance, then are selling a car or selling their car, you know, have something which can then show the proof that everything is.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. A number of questions. We'll go back to the department. There's plenty of time. Will not come into operation until next April. So, Okay, members. Next SL1 is waste management licensing amendment at page 164. The purpose of this is to implement an EU directive on the recycling and disposal of waste batteries and accumulators. Is proposed that the statutory rule will come into operation by the end of October 2014, and the regulation will be subject to the negative resolution procedure. Members, are you content for the department to proceed with making the rule?
Right.
Okay, next item at page 171, members. Item 11, draft statutory rule. The local government indemnities for members and officers amendment of Order NI. The proposed order requires councils to include terms within any indemnity insurance provisions for the repayment of costs relating to cases where a councillor has been found to be in breach of the Northern Ireland Local Government Code of Conduct for councillors. We looked at the SL1 at our meeting on the 3rd of July 2014 when we were content for the department to proceed with making the route. The route is subject to the draft affirmative resolution and it will not come into operation until it has been affirmed by plenary. The examiner of statutory rules has made no comment on the route. So, members, this is to say that actually if they breach, they are found to be breaching the code of conduct, the new code of conduct, then the cost, legal cost may be recouped back from the councillor. So that's quite a change to the previous legislation. So members content with that? No problem with that?
Great.
Okay, we moved on then.
Anna, you have to read this.
I have to read that to you. Okay, the question is, members, the Committee for the Environment has considered the Local Government Indemnities for Members and Officers Amendment Order Northern Ireland 2014 and recommends that the Assembly affirm this rule. Are members content with? Do you agree?
Great.
Yep. Okay. Next item, item 12, at page 177, departmental briefing on the October monitoring round 2014. And members, you have a briefing paper from the department at page 177. And hello, if I can welcome Anthony Cowton. Anthony is the new Director of Finance and Business Planning Division. And also welcome back Kieran McMacken. Kieran has moved on, but Kieran is still here to help with this briefing. Where have you moved to, Kieran?
No, I'm still in the Department of the Environment.
Just move sideways or upwards? Or?
Yes, sideways.
Sideways, okay.
Thanks for doing that.
Okay, and Siobhan again. Nice to see you, Siobhan. Okay. Difficult times, really, isn't it?
I think it's
Not
difficult
easy.
time. Yeah, difficult time for everybody.
Yes.
Just to Chair, thank you very much. And I just want to say hello. This is my first meeting. I belong to this committee. I can just say Kieran on my right here is here to make sure I don't make a fool of myself too much. So, really, I'm just going to hand over to Siobhan, who will take you through the paper, and then hopefully we'll be able to respond to any questions.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Okay. I'll begin with updating you on the outcome of June monitoring. The Department put forward 6 resource bids, totalling £5.9 million, and 4 capital investment bids totalling £5.8 million. They're outlined there on page 2 of our paper, Table 1 and Table 2. You'll see that none of the resource bids were met, with the exception of the EU funding for Interreg 4A of 0.3 million and 4.4 million of the capital bids were met. In addition to that, we also received allocations for the local government reform funding, which was agreed by the Executive in February 2013. And that was £12.8 million, and other smaller allocations of roll forward of unused carrier bag receipts, 0.3 and 0.2 for coastal communities. Also, as part of June monitoring then were the reductions that we had to address, and we were instructed, we imposed 2.1% on the opening baseline, which was equivalent to £2.3 million. And we, as part of June monitoring, we're also advising to plan for further cuts at October of 2.3%, which equated to £2.7 million. So, in total, we are currently planning for reductions of £5.1 million, which is 4.4% of our opening baseline. You'll appreciate, yes, that this is a very challenging financial position, and we've outlined in the paper a number of issues that make it very challenging. and the main one being around the local government grants that the department pays. The opening baseline that the reductions are calculated on includes £44 million of local government grants, the D-rating grant and the resources grant, and that equates to 37% of the baseline. But the department cannot cut those grants in year. So therefore, we have to apply the reductions to the remaining 67% of the department's budget, which makes it very difficult. So we've an action plan in place to deliver the 5.1 million, which we've outlined in the paper to you, and that includes a number of actions. First one, vacancy management. There's a cessation of filling vacant posts in the department at the minute, and that has released 2.3 million of funding. We've also phased out our contract temporary workers, which has released 0.1 million. We've realigned the Coastal Communities Fund budget against the profile of the spend, and that has freed up £0.5 million of funding in year, which isn't needed for the Coastal Communities Fund this year, but we'll have to make that good in future years. And we have conducted a review of our general administration across all business areas in the department, which has released 0.6 million. And we have postponed a number of planned procurements and curtailed spend on contracts and lower priority environmental programmes, which has released 1.6 million. So in total, we have a plan in place currently to meet the reductions of 5.1 million. Now, also then, as part of October monitoring, we were asked to put forward bids, and the department is proposing to just put forward one bid as part of October monitoring, which is to ask for the reinstatement of the cut relating to those local government grants that I've mentioned, and that equates to £0.93 million. And we're not proposing to put forward any capital bids.
Okay, thank you. Just to remind everyone, this session is being recorded by Hansard. Okay. It is difficult, really. It's all right to say ceasing to fill vacant posts in the department, but if they are essential posts, you can't just say someone's left. You don't fill it. So, I mean, is this going to be really across the board? Someone's left, and then you're not filling it, or you're looking at how important that post is, whether it needs to be filled, or is it just blanket policy? You don't fill any posts that have become vacant.
Sure, I think the policy is the vacant posts will not be filled. However, we will reprioritise the bodies in the position. So the point is, we're going to reduce the headcount by a certain percentage. However, we will have to realign those people to the higher priority areas. And you're right, it is difficult. However, that's the department and the minister are now looking at specific pieces of work and areas of work and setting priorities, and that's consistent with a reducing budget.
Mm. So you're saying savings of 2.3 million. So how many posts are we talking about then, roughly?
In total, there's about 170 vacancies at the end of August. And then, as Anthony says, the key posts will be prioritised, but at the moment there's a hold on filling all of those, and then move staff from lower priority activity into the key posts, which are higher priority.
Right.
So it's a case of reprioritisation.
Yeah.
And then we'll have to review that again in the context of any further budget reductions that the executive may agree.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. How likely is it that you can recoup that money allocated for local government. What happens then? I mean, you're saying you want to, the bit is really, the only bit is for 0.93 million, and that's for local government. How likely are you going to be able to get that? I want.
Well, just to be clear for members, the 0.9 million is the percentage of the grant. Now, we are not reducing the grant. We have to take that from other points and expenditure within the department. At this stage, certainly DFP officials and the moon music, it doesn't appear to be terribly hopeful, but at the same time there is an issue about reducing baselines, and the Minister's very concerned about reducing the baseline on the foot of hosting essentially a grant process.
Sure. If all of us up here in the Assembly or departments or suffer reduction, I suppose local council needs to have a share of that as well. Yeah. I'll bring others in. Many questions here. Carol?
Thanks, Chair, and thank you very much for your presentation. Just in relation to, I have some concerns, certainly in relation to the local government aspect. I mean, clearly, do we not have those budgets? I take it that those budgets ring-fenced for the delivery of that, yeah? I mean, it's a priority for us in terms of what we're transferring down to local government. We need to ensure that the funding is in place, the resources in place, the jobs are in place for transfer. Are we saying we're still on target for that?
So I'm going to say yes unless somebody says no. I mean, the reductions aren't impacting any transfers to local.
No, that's grand. Yeah. Okay. Say in terms of, I see here in relation to the carrier bags levy, 4 million. I mean, are we saying we're taking it to shore up gaps in resource? Is that it? The only reason I'm asking the question is because if we didn't have the carrier bags levy, how then would we address it? Is that what we're saying? We're using that carrier bags levy to address some of the gaps at this moment in time. Yeah?
I think that the department's looking to use some of the carrier bag levy to identify other environmental projects that, in reality, without the carrier bag levy, it would not be able to take forward.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And in the context of that, you see, because the added value of that, using it, like I'm just using listed buildings as an example, where we put the money in, at least we get a return. You know, I mean, it was through tourism or whatever, as long as we're using the money properly. And that's the context I'm asking the question. Mind you, I would be concerned that some of the environmental projects that we had outlined at the start are not getting done, but obviously we're cutting our cloth to suit at this moment in time. But you are saying that whilst we're taking the carrier bag levy, the projects that we're doing or whatever, the return on them, is that what you're saying to me?
Well, certainly they are in the environmental envelope.
Yes, that's right. And certainly there are proposed projects in there as well that will generate that return from an investment point of view and economic activity as well.
Okay, and just there's so many questions here, but I'll let Alice in. I want to ask one question just in relation to could we have a copy of the listed buildings proposals, whatever? I know you made a bid there, obviously did not receive any money for it, but just the in relation to the listed buildings, could we have a copy of that, and also the dereliction intervention scheme, because I know that there's councils has been asking in relation to some of that stuff, and it is beneficial that the long-term gains that the local authority would get out of that. So maybe you could pass that through this, please. Thank you, Chair.
I understand some of the road traffic local projects on the ground. Some they have been, I think, issued even letters of offer, but now they're all being put on hold. Is it all because of cuts, I suppose? I heard from the voluntary sector that it's the road safety local projects, the grants programme. People have been issued letters, but have now been told that they're not getting the money yet. Is that correct?
Yes, as part of the review of options in light of the budget reductions, those are just temporarily on hold until we review the magnitude of the budget reductions. There are a number of very good projects in there, and hopefully there will be reasonable funding going forward to on a number of those projects. So it's not that all funding has ceased.
Okay. What about the Challenge Fund? Are you going to continue to give that extra? Last year they got extra money from the receipts of the
Yes.
levy, bag levy.
Yes, I understand that there will be at least 25% of the higher bag levy will go towards a new challenge fund in the current year.
So how much is that?
That's just over £1 million.
Okay, so they get 2 million then. They always had $1 million. I think last year didn't they get nearly another $1 million on top?
Yes, that's right. It was a
Yes.
total of 2 million last
2
year.
million, yeah. So coming next year, they'll be getting what? Still getting 1 million or 2 million?
We'll confirm that for you.
Okay.
They're certainly getting £1 million from the Cairo bag levy.
Oh, right, okay.
So
So it could be on top
Yeah,
of
so
what we
I'll-
normally give them.
Okay, so we'll come back and confirm
Sure,
the basis
sure.
of that. Just
Because it is a very good project, and people, on the ground are very enthusiastic. And I think you get a lot of volunteer effort into it too, because it's a local project. Okay. Sandra?
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much for your being here today to answer questions. I have a few questions. First of all, generally the cut right across NIEA and the resulting cuts then on the temporary workers. How do you feel that has impacted, especially considering it was the height of the tourist season and letting all those workers off at that critical time?
And I think that I suppose there was a slight fortuitous timing that the most of the seasonal workers that went out of NIE were towards the end of August, and it was closer to the end of the tourist season than the start of the season. I think obviously any staff reduction is going to have an impact on services. But the department is looking at very, very drastic cuts in its funding, and it has to sit to where the priorities sit. The casual staff's members do make a very important contribution, but it's closer to the end of the season. I mean, member says it's closer to the end of August. When
And how long would they normally work on to?
well, they would work through to the sort of
Middle of September.
September, October time. Yeah.
So they've basically lost a month there anyway. of work,
Certainly,
and that's rather disappointing in that aspect of it. Looking back to the June monitoring bids, there's a figure there for NIEA waste of 1.75 million. Can you tell me what that was for? Was it to do with illegal smuggling, or was it for something else? Or can you tell me what that?
That related to a combination of issues on the environmental protection front dealing with waste. It included things like funding to address fly tipping. There was also monitoring arrangements for water quality. That was an element, and it also indicated additional monitoring mechanisms around some potentially illegal landfill sites as well, to keep those on.
Right, and because you didn't get that, then have you got the capacity to deal with those things, then, or how are you managing?
That's one of the areas where then activity on the ground will have to be reprioritised in light of the budget reductions, and hence lower priority pieces of work will have to stop and redirected into areas like this where there's a higher risk, a potentially higher risk.
I mean, looking back, there was an illegal dump found outside Londonderry back early in the year. How much did that cost, and how have you been able to finance that? Did you have to, was that included in a bid, or?
Yeah, that would have been some of the monitoring arrangements were included within that bid. That would be the additional monitoring arrangements to ensure that there's no pollution coming from the site, and the Environment Agency continues to carry out that work. They're using their own staff to do that at the moment. so that work continues.
And sorry, just explain that again. How's it being paid for?
The Environment Agency have been carrying out very close monitoring activity to ensure that there's no leakage from the site into the surrounding water supply. They have been carrying out regular site visits, and that work continues.
Right.
But if we
So
had
it's coming out of the current budget then?
It's coming out of the current budget. However, there could be additional monitoring. If resources were made available, there would then be additional monitoring and look at the wider area as well.
Right.
So it's focusing existing resources on the key priority areas, but that monitoring is still ongoing.
Kieran, it's not just about monitoring, it's about clearing it. Because
Yes.
it's a large dump, massive dump.
It is. I understand that the Environment Agency are in the process of looking at the various options for the entirety of the site, and that work is ongoing at the moment. It will be once that work is concluded, that will determine the best way then to address the issues around the entire site.
It'll be a massive amount of money to do that work.
Will you be making further bids then to get that completed?
That's where it keeps asking.
Yes, depending upon the chosen route for potentially cleaning up the site, there could be very significant bids being made in the future. Those will have to come through to the executive.
And what sort of time frame were you, sort of time frame were you looking at getting this?
But we'll have to clarify the time. I know that there's work ongoing in terms of the overall monitoring of this, following the publication of a report last year into the potential effect of this on the environment and the surrounding area.
Does it normally take that length of time? Sorry, I'm new to this committee.
We can follow up in terms of
Yes, we can follow up
scheme
on
for
this.
this.
The Mills
We'll come back.
report. The Mills report. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. I just
And
wanted
there's
to ask
also
for
a
information.
legal investigation ongoing. The polluters pay. That's the main thing.
Yes.
That's a
We need
principle.
that,
Yes.
rather than for the department to foot that bill.
I just wanted to ask then also about the vacancy post, and do you have detail of the grades of those all, or could you maybe provide that? No.
I think we can provide those. I mean, we don't have them with us now in detail, but we'll certainly send a note through to the committee.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, Sandra.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. Peter?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I suppose just 3 points I want to touch on very briefly. First, just maybe a way of getting, if we can get some information, because I think it's not really something that... Obviously, one of the major savings is your final bullet point of postponement of planned procurements, curtailing, spend a number of contracts. I mean, it seems to cover probably maybe quite a wide range of issues, but it's a little bit vague in what you put there. I wonder if you could maybe provide the committee with some sort of table of a breakdown of that in each of the areas in terms of the 1.6 million. Second bit then is, I may be being a bit obtuse, I didn't quite follow. I understand the position in terms of that there are a range of grants, particularly the two main grants that are going out to councils, which are, if you like, subject to the overall, at least they're used for the calculations for the baseline reduction, but obviously that you can't then reduce those because of, I suppose, be it either legal or essentially in year. But what constitutes the 0.93 million then, in terms of what areas can that hit in terms of grants? So I'm not altogether clear from where that sort of kicks in.
What we're saying is, correct me if I'm wrong, but 0.93 doesn't affect grants. What happens is we then take the 0.93, add it on, and that becomes part of the reduction to other services.
0.93 is 2.1% of the 44 million. So the 44 million is the two de-rating and the local government grant.
So essentially you're making the argument in terms of, from the point of view of bid proposal, to essentially say, actually the cut's gone too deep because we're actually getting hit in an area which we can't actually reduce.
Yeah, and we're asking for that element of the cut back.
Yeah. And if you just tell us, because again, I suppose with respect, there can always be a slight element of management speak or whatever whenever we talk about realignment of coastal communities, grant releases, 0.5 million in the current year, which has to be made in future years. Could you talk us through what actually that means in practice, and therefore who's being affected effectively by the $500,000, and how is that simply knocked on to a later year? What way does that operate?
Okay. This is a Treasury-led scheme, and allocations had been set out from 12-13. So in the current year, the scheme works effectively 1 year in arrears by the time letters of offer are issued and grant applicants commence spending funding. It's at that point that the department would then reimburse those projects. In the current year, 14-15, the estimated forecast spend by grant applicants is in the order of about 800, just over 800,000. However, the budget cover that we have available from Treasury is around 1.4 million.
Okay.
So, as a consequence then of realigning the actual activity on the ground with the budget provision, we have been able then to...
Basically, you're not going to need the 1.4 million, you're going to need about
800, yes,
Nine
over
about.
800,000, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Would you say maybe perhaps if we're, again, like being obtuse or whatever, if maybe that could be, whenever you're presenting in the future, slightly more explicit, because I suspect you could torture various people and ask them what realignment of grant releases is. It's not particularly plain to anybody looking in from outside in that regard. But okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I misinterpreted it. You say 0.93% is you're trying to recoup back from your bid.
Yeah.
So it's not going to affect local government.
No.
But is there any way we can say, right, we are, we have all been asked for reduction in our spending in our government department. What about local councils?
Well, I think the Minister's very strong commitment this year to protect the amounts of money being moved out as part of the reorganisation. I think that position might become more difficult as the Executive move forward with next year's budget.
Yeah.
And also if the department's hosting of certain grants gets bigger, the quantum gets bigger. It would be very difficult for the department if, for instance, it was hosting at a grant of 100 million. They take a certain percentage of that and apply that to the rest of the department spend. So it's in a difficult position this year because the local government's protected. That protection, I'm not too sure, will be carried on once we get into the 15-16 budget cycle.
Yeah, because that's quite a large amount coming out of the department to local government. If that's all protected and ring fenced, and that means other activities are going to suffer, more, and proportionally. Okay, Colin?
Thanks, Chair. Thank you for your presentation. In terms of the post-reduction, like you said, 2.3 million. How sustainable is that in the kind of short to medium term, or in terms of running the department? You obviously needed those posts for a reason.
Yes, the part of the department's business plan and longer term plan involved those posts. I think over like every other government department, when you look at the sustainability of the the size of the workforce with the available budgets, I imagine our department, the same as everybody else, will be looking at what they can deliver, and that will form a crucial part of the Minister's considerations. We are in a situation, I'm sure you'll appreciate, that this is almost October, and the opportunity, the money that's left from which you can take the reductions from is quite short, and we want to look in planning terms, next year and beyond.
So in terms of that, is that a kind of a looking forward scenario that you think that a bit of the 2.3 million will save you from taking a bit more in terms of October, or is that just for June?
That's looking to October as at the 4.4% as is suggested, but as you know, there's another paper, the executives meeting this afternoon, and the actual amount is getting quite fluid.
If we get an October monitor now, we'll be doing well. But, in terms of the carrier bag levy, can you just, for clarity, explain how that actually works? What projects you were hoping to fund out of that kind of originally, and what will not be funded now as a result of having to use it for other purposes, or having to use a significant amount of it for other purposes?
I'm going to ask Kieran if you have the detail. I know it might be difficult with specific projects, we might have to come back to you with that, but
Yes.
How did you decide? I'm trying to work out how you decided what not to fund. If
Well, I think that maybe just to clarify, it's not that there's a large range of projects which are significantly being curtailed as a result of the budget reductions linking into the carrier bag levy. There will still be a fund of £4 million. The point of clarity in the paper is that if we weren't operating a carrier bag levy, we would have more flexibility with £4 million in our baseline in terms of putting the range of projects that could be funded. Whereas there are certain restrictions applied to the operation of the carrier bag levy, both by Treasury and as a consequence.
It was never ring fenced then in that way.
It has been. Yeah, it has been ring fenced. In line with a range of environmental protection measures. But our point is that if we weren't operating the carrier bag levy, that £4 million could be used for a wider range of purposes.
You wouldn't have it though.
Well, yes, on day one we wouldn't have. Yes, yeah. This was moved from the baseline as part of the budget 2012-15 exercise. So we didn't have it on day one, but then we were given the capacity to generate carrier bag levy of up to the £4 million.
Okay, fine. And just in terms of the Mullaboy issue, I know it's very important that we do get this site cleared and everything else, and how that ends up being funded is another story. But you talked about the kind of word you used, monitoring.
The monitoring, yes.
That is very, very important because people are panicking about that infecting other, water supplies and the Faughan and everything else. Can you confirm that monitoring is still at the same level? Well, it's basically at the level that it needs to be at, in order to ensure that we don't slip into a situation where things are getting polluted that we've missed.
Okay, we can clarify that, but I'm reasonably certain that the levels will at least have been maintained.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Well, best of luck, and thank you for your presentation, and hope you get the £0.9 million back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And you're going to give us further information on the various questions from members.
Put him back on any.
Thank you. Thank you.
So there's two more up on it.
Okay, members.
Sure, just on that, I didn't want to put them on the spot there in case they couldn't answer the question, but I mean, I don't know whether this is a wish list or priorities in some of the cases in terms of resources and capital. We asked the department to outline, more specifically in relation to all of those, because, which was say 1.25 for listed buildings and 1.75 for waste and all that. Maybe give more detail.
Yeah.
I mean, they're either priorities,
Yes.
We're going to have to cut the cloth now in terms of surely each department should be working with priorities.
Yeah. I am quite concerned about the moving away, what they call the realignment of the coastal communities fund. I mean, that's about flooding in areas like in Bangor and all that. So they said it will be realigned, but the money would have to come in future years.
Basically, because of the way the thing worked in terms of timing, that they were effectively had 1.4 in the pot, but were only getting, because they were effectively paying out, was it more or less last year's bit, and only had about just under 900,000 to pay out. So to some extent, almost irrespective of whether they had to make cuts or not, that presumably would have gone out of that.
Okay, members, we'll wait and see what the results are going to be. We hear that. Okay, members, we moved on.
Yeah.
Okay. Next item then is item 13. Let's see, that's our proposed visit to Metabolum. So we have 4 members who are planning to join Renew to go to Belgium and Germany. 12, is that right? 12 October? 12, 13 October, is it?
14.
14. Okay.
You're on your own if you're going to the
Seems so far away, but in fact it's not that far away. It's only about 2-3 weeks away. So we will see the latest technology for the recycling and refining of waste. You know how all that is being developed. So we're going to have a briefing now to ensure that all members are able to understand the background and purpose of the visit. So we have Renew, the special advisor from oh, sorry, you're in here already, Martin. You're very welcome, Martin. You gave us, myself and the clerk a briefing. When was it? 2-3 months ago?
Beginning of June,
yeah, and it was really, really interesting. So I think it's useful for members to hear that, even those who heard it before, to hear about the whole thing, the Sunnis technology and the vision of it. So members, just background information at page 182. Are you going to talk us through that paper, 182?
I can do so.
No. No, that's not your paper. I'm sorry. That's from our research. Is that right? That's a bit sorry. That shows I haven't looked at it. I thought I remember a lot of it. So over to you, Martin, to impress the members about this new technology.
Well, thank you very much for give Renew the opportunity to do so. Renew is it's a £5 million Interreg 4B funded programme led by the Quester Centre at Queen's University. It comprises experts from across North West Europe, and part of the visit we will be going to see what I believe are best practice examples, which I think can be a massive boost to the Northern Ireland economy. One of the things that we're trying to get across with Renew, and it's been highlighted quite recently in the committee, is the difficulty we have with managing waste within Northern Ireland. That's because, by and large, we rely on targets which push us along a road to achieving a more sustainable footing. What Renew is trying to demonstrate is there's a massive economic imperative for us to be actually looking after materials in a much more sensible and realistic manner. And this has been identified by large players across the whole of Europe in terms of their introduction to resource-efficient Europe, but particularly large manufacturers are taking it upon themselves to actually look and examine what they need to do to actually put in place security of materials. We here in Northern Ireland want to grow our aerospace business from 1 billion to 2 billion, which is very laudable, but you can only do it if you have access to the materials in the first place to allow you to do it. And what we're trying to get across here is that within Northern Ireland and across the northwest of Europe, we have the capacity to become world leaders in terms of innovation, and this is really where the Renew project is allowing us to bridge the gap from research and development of these technologies and actually commercialising them, so therefore we can actually grow the economy, grow high quality jobs here in Northern Ireland, and obviously be a major benefit across the whole of North West Europe and beyond. So really that's what we're trying to get across with you. It's not so much dealing with what people normally associate with waste as when you leave your bins out on a Wednesday or a Thursday or whatever else. This is actually the critical materials we need to actually keep the Northern Ireland economy on its feet. We're not a resource-rich economy. We can't dig up an awful lot. We're not blessed in that regard. But what we do is we have an awful lot of materials coming in. And what we're trying to do for Renew is demonstrate that what we're looking to do in terms of building an innovation centre within possibly the North Foreshore with our partners in CASE is that this is as critical a piece of infrastructure as it is the building of the Larne Line. So if we want to have a situation where metaphorically 3 of the lanes are used to drive to Larne to export materials and only 1 coming away, this level of infrastructure is necessary for us to be there. And an article last week in the Ulster Business, basically from the people within the aerospace industry, say they need 3,500 engineers and scientists by 2016 to be able to make that growth. And this is exactly the same across the board. It's moved away from managing waste as an end-of-pipe process to us realising that we need to go to the very beginning of it. This is where the value is. It saves us having to tackle poor performance in terms of being thrown over a hedge, regardless of where that happens, because we can add value to it. And that can be demonstrated. We have difficulty. The other extreme is that people are breaking into steel, copper, and various other bits and pieces because of the inherent value in those materials. So we need to. What I hope to do as part of the visit is demonstrate to yourselves the need for support from government, from private agencies, and indeed academia to come together in a more clear and form to help Northern Ireland get onto that footing.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, we have a few tabled research paper for members. Sorry, I kind of thought the one in your pack is just background information, but in your pack we have a research paper at page 6, and also some questions that a member may want to look at, and that's at page 5. Yeah. If you can maybe explain to us in layman's terms the difference between recycling and resource efficiency. What do we mean by that? What's the difference between that?
Oh, okay. Well, this might sound strange, I suppose, but recycling is only probably the third or fourth best thing you can actually do with materials in the first place. If you prevent waste in the first place, you save an awful lot of money, and the environmental consequences are eliminated because you don't have to manage it. Then you've got a thing called reduction, i.e. improving the efficiency of process. You will all probably have computers in front of you, which are what we call laptops or whatever else. And the first computer developed in the 50s was massive and filled the whole room. So we actually reduce the amount of materials we need to manufacture items. We then reuse. There was a conversation earlier about the reconditioning of wind turbines and stuff like that. That's a thing of reuse. And again, within wind turbines, the critical materials in that, holding on to those, are valuable for our industry. And then obviously recycling is taking a material which previously was a plastic bottle and turning it into a pair of trousers for a kid going to school, which you can buy in Marks and Sparks and stuff, because it's all polyesters, and if I keep it to the material is essentially the same. You can build one with the other. So that's essentially what we're trying to do. What the difficulty with resource security is that we're not the only country in the world that's trying to grow our economy, and therefore we have to compete with those. And if you look at critical materials, there's about 44 critical materials. The Chinese government controls 22 of them, and therefore, they are seeing this as vitally important to put in structures in place to be able to ensure that you've got access to the materials to be able to produce the goods that we want to do to have a vibrant, sustainable and prosperous economy here in Northern Ireland. So it's vitally important that we look at that, not simply just from the segregating out of the materials into the various things, if we look at the bin analogy, but we have to add significant value to them prior to them leaving these shores again. That way we can actually grow our economy, because what we're doing quite a lot of the time at the present time is extracting plastics and paper, but sending it on to other processors and other states to actually add the value to sell the paper back to us and the materials back to us. So what we can do through the development of an innovation centre is allow the excellence of the people who inhabit Northern Ireland, essentially, and we have a historical significance in terms of engineering to allow us to explore ways of actually adding sizable value to those materials and indeed creating indigenous businesses and securing the sustainability of the manufacturing base we have at the present moment in time.
Yeah, it's from the very beginning as well, being more efficient, smarter in using our raw material, our natural resources as well. So, okay, other members, any questions? Carol.
Thanks, Chair Martin. Thank you very much for your presentation. You're very welcome. And Chair, thanks very much for the questions here outlined. But before I do ask 2 specific questions there, Martin, it's interesting. Project you're doing, but I want to ask this, because the concept we should be proactive as opposed to reactive, and I want to use them terms because in part of your presentation I think that's the way to go. Now obviously there's good business opportunities in terms of being reactive, but I just want to ask you, in terms of some of the materials, I mean, a number of different recycling boxes with Kirby's and with a brown bin, a grey bin and everything else. But obviously there's a residual there that we can't. In terms of the materials specifically, one, how can them materials or some materials be reused and benefit? And going on from that, how did your project benefit the North in general terms?
Well, in terms of what we would call residual waste has been increasingly shrinking as and when we have developed markets for new materials, and tends to be the economic consideration drives what we do with waste. So the difficulty is once you have a material which probably is either destined for landfill or possibly energy from waste, it's believed that that's the best inherent value, the valorisation of that material through that system. What we're advocating is by putting further effort into the initial research and development, we can continue to extract those materials out. For example, again, to give it in lay terms, whilst I don't want to concentrate on the bins issue because we look at agricultural wastes and sludge waste, but to give it in sort of easier terms, 4 or 5 years ago, Tetra Packs were part of residual waste. They are no longer part of residual waste. You can put them in. Aluminium foil couldn't go into your bin. So as we develop the infrastructure to allow us to extract those materials and develop markets for us, we can do so. So therefore, the only thing that's constraining us in taking more materials out is the lack of research, or indeed the demonstrating a financial benefit to not destroying via energy from waste or indeed from landfill. So there's a considerable boon to us increasing our recycling rate by researching what we can do with those materials. In terms of even again looking at other aspects of what we can do as well, is you're probably aware for your committee dealings that anaerobic digestion is likely to play a considerable role within the Northern Ireland energy mix going forward. But actually within anaerobic digestion as well, we can do things with the materials in it. There's things called platform chemicals, which are guys and girls actually in the universities are able to extract, add significant value to, and they can actually go on to make pharmaceuticals and various other biorefined plastics, which are very valuable in the market at the present moment in time. One of our partners in Limerick in TCCB, or TCBB, for the Technology Centre for Biorefinery and Bioengineering, are looking at taking low-grade waste from dairy industry and actually turning them into valuable bioplastics and platform chemicals. And we can do this, but within Northern Ireland, one of the difficulties is we don't have the commercialisation facilities to allow us to do it. And one of the, as I say, the hope would be, as and I understand we're operating in a very constrained financial environment, is that as well as building the physical infrastructure in terms of the buildings, we also need to actually sort of realign the government infrastructure and everything else so that we're actually all pointing in the one direction. And that can be, there's an element of siloisation which I think the Innovation Centre can help bring about change in that regard too.
Right, in terms of obviously innovation and new technology is the way to go forward. In terms of industry supporting that, because I believe, you know, we should be getting in the university bringing forward new ideas. In terms of the industry, actually, given the constraints, the economic constraints we have in terms of looking at budgets and what public we actually can do here in the Assembly to drive it forward. In terms of private industry, what way is working with it to try and
well, the Quaestor Centre, who leads this project, have industrial partners from across the world. They were very successful. In fact, they're one of the very few international research centres across the world, have been accredited by the US Science Foundation. They would have partners from Shell, the large petrochemical industries down to small indigenous SMEs looking at sensors and various other. So we can corral these all together. In fact, there's been letters of support sent to Quaestor that if they were actually to develop the North Foreshore and use that as an innovation site, that various industries would actually coalesce around that and actually create a cluster, which has basically been demonstrated to be one of the more effective ways of growing that particular sector. So there are numerous industries that we can bring on board one of the, as I say, the difficulty a lot of industries have is getting access to the right commercialisation facilities to bring their ideas to fruition. There's a massive amount of research and development goes on within the universities in Northern Ireland, but it's actually exploitation could be much better, and I think everybody recognises that. And these are the sort of facilities that we do require to bring it to fruition.
Okay, thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Pam?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. Very interesting presentation. For those of us who will not be able to take part in the visit, it would be good to have a brief overview of the facilities at Vito and Metaballon. If you could give that to us, but just to clarify, what you're telling us is that here in Northern Ireland, while we're processing waste and recycled materials, we're not actually taking the true benefit out of it. We're not making the money ourselves. We're not growing the economy for ourselves by actually taking from that waste the value. Mm-hmm. It sounds very simple. It sounds a simple fix, but I suppose, I can see down the line lots of controversy every time you talk about any kind of waste facility or waste management facility. People in general up in arms. Nobody wants it on their doorstep. That I see maybe as a challenge for the future, but welcome the idea, and I hope that Northern Ireland does get to grips with this soon and actually learn to deal with the waste and to benefit for us. I think that would be fantastic. Any comments even as to how you see that we would deal with those problems that may manifest in the future?
Well, my professional background, I'm very consciously aware of the impacts of people's perception on waste facilities. One of the things that we'd like to get across is realise people love when there's announcements from Vesta and I when we're building large industry and manufacturers are coming in. What we would like to see is people start realising that what we're trying to do is exactly that. It's just simply our raw materials are coming from the waste sources. So if we can, I suppose, as part of the behaviour change campaigns on behalf of the DOE and various others, is actually start recognising the value of the activities that are going on rather than referring to the waste facilities. So that if we start manufacturing products from our waste stream, they'll become manufacturing outlets as opposed to a waste management facility. So, but I am very conscientious that the public's perception of waste is smelly, dirty, and and having worked on a landfill site for 55 hours a week whilst cutting my professional teeth, I'm very conscientious of the concerns there. But the fact of the matter is, if you were to go to some of the modern facilities and look at actually what they're doing in terms of segregation of waste, they're very clean, they're very well managed. They have to be, because if you wish to extract the maximum value for selling recycled plastic bottles, they have to go to the marketplace in a very clean way. So, the attitude's changed and shifted remarkably in that regard. But that's part of the process, that's change. In terms of the facilities you're going to go to see, Metaballon is it's a wonderful facility. There's actually a picture here. I don't know if you've recirculated these. One of the things you can look forward to is a 120-metre long slide if you're prepared to walk to the top of the steps. But they've actually turned the landfill site into an interactive agency where not only is there science, high-end science and technology taking place, large-scale waste management operations like the ones you alluded to, but they've actually used it as a community facility so that people can go and see how their impacts can be ameliorated or solved through the technology that is there. So, that was actually what they're trying to do on Metaballon, is get away from the fears that people have, which you articulated. So, in relation to Vito stemmed out of a need in the 1960s from the Flemish government to look into various bits of research. Their industries were crumbling because of the change, so therefore they were looking at a particular aspect of science and technology, but they've morphed into a materials experts
in that regard, and they also do a number of other activities with businesses, but they've got great partnerships with the government as well, and their funding mechanism is slightly different from the ones we use over here. So one of the things we would be very keen to show to the members who are going to actually go on the trip is they can actually find out from their peers, because there'll be Wallonia politicians visiting with us in Metabolon as well, and there possibly be Flemish politicians at the Vito visit, where you can ask them their experiences of investing and what they feel they get out of it in that regard. So the sites will be their technological sites. I'm sure you may well have been to some of them, but the Metabolon site itself is mightily impressive by how they've integrated living with engineering at the same time, but also how there's a group called Zenit, who are their regional economic development engine for Northwest Westphalia, and how they're constructed by not only regional government, but they're backed by 3 independent banks, who then actually can go to these facilities, see the technology that they're doing, and then gain access to the funding and financing to actually make them grow within their area. And their economies are going very well in this regard, So.
Thank you.
Okay. Colin?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Martin. I know we've met before through this. I think it's very good. It makes a lot of sense. I think these things only ever make sense to people when you make it about the economy. Sometimes you tell people it's good for the environment and nothing ever happens, but when you tell them it'll save them money, and rightly so, it starts to have an impact. It was the same around global warming and everything else. But just tell, in terms of, we're obviously very far away from a lot of other places in terms of where we need to be on this stuff. How long do you think, if we were able to develop that project on the North Shore, how far away would we be? How long would we be from actually getting to kind of a position of excellence around this stuff?
Well, I wouldn't say very long, because at the present moment in time we're leading this project in Northern Ireland. We've got wonderful people in the Questor Centre who are leading it, so we have the capacity to be able to become leaders. Really what you're constrained us with getting the finances in place to build an innovation centre and the planning and getting the bricks up. So I think once we have the physical infrastructure in place, we can start to demonstrate our excellence fairly quickly. And through the Renew programme, we will have a legacy, a network legacy. So whereas we have gaps in terms of our understanding for the benefit of Northern Ireland's economy, we can actually call on our partners in Flanders, in Wallonia, in Germany, and down south as well, in terms of bringing in, plugging those gaps. So I don't think it's necessarily a long process. I genuinely don't believe that, because the evidence is that we're already winning. I think in terms of the excellence of the Questor Centre, I mean, in the last 3 years or so, they've managed to get grants totalling £15 million, most of which is 50% funded. So they've brought in £7.5 million into the local economy as well. So it's just building upon that research and actually exploiting it. So I wouldn't want to say 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years, but Colin, I don't believe it's a particularly long period of time. In fact, within 2 or 3, 4 years of the facility being built, it should be, depends on the model you use for funding, it should be up and running and punching its weight for ourselves here.
Good, thank you.
So what's going to happen to the funding to this project then after 2015?
Well, the funding runs out for Interreg 4B. The hope would be is that we explore all our avenues for funding in that regard. As I said, we're working with our partners in the case the Centre for Applied Sustainable Energy to put in an Interreg 5 bid with for £15 million to actually build an innovation centre. Really what we're looking at is we'll have to explore, once we have the bricks and steel and glass up, how do you actually put, let us say metaphorically, the soft furnishings inside that building to allow us to be able to operate it, to ensure that we can staff it and various other bits and pieces. What you are probably aware, I mean, as Questor have demonstrated, they've got a prodigious capacity for attracting awards from Europe, and we can start to, if we have the top-class facilities in Northern Ireland, getting access to funding such as Horizon 2020, which is £79 billion worth of will make it a hell of a lot easier because they know we will be able to produce the results in terms of because we have the facilities in place. So therefore, Northern Ireland would be a go-to place in terms of that type of funding.
Absolutely. Horizon 2020 is massive funding. We really need to get our gear up to try to maximise the potential there, no doubt about it. Lord Morrow?
Thank you, Chair. Martin, you talked there earlier about the residual waste. That is,
Residual waste
is decreasing. Now, to what extent, what percentage of the waste is it at the moment, and to what extent is it reducing? I think you took some comfort from the fact that it is reducing. Is it significant?
Well, it depends which waste stream you're looking at. I mean, it tends to be the public focus on waste tends to relate to municipal waste. It's the bins that we use. But if you look at that in the overall picture of Northern Ireland PLC, it roughly works out at about a third. Now, if our economy starts to grow and we have more businesses, that percentage is likely to grow because people have more money and therefore they buy more products, but also that the production capacity of Northern Ireland will go up and therefore their wastage within that is likely to increase as well. So in terms of the reduction, in terms of municipal waste, I know a great many of the councils are getting up and closeward to 40% recycling. The difficulty, and there'll be other colleagues in the EPD and various other parts of the DOE will give you the exact figures off the top. The difficulty is that a recent publication from the European Union out in July basically states, their circular economy paper states that they would like to see recycling get to 70%, and that's across us as a municipality. So it doesn't discriminate against one particular waste stream, i.e. just bins that we use. It's actually businesses and various other bits and pieces. Your role as committee members will probably have had sight of the fact that we're going to introduce a rule for businesses with over 5 kilograms of waste a week to start to segregate that material out. It's actually those type of levers that allow us to reduce the residual waste. And that in itself, reducing or taking out the biodegradable elements of that waste, then make it much easier for us to extract the other materials out of that, because adding everything into one bin adds massive value and limits the capacity for us to do anything worthwhile with paper, cardboard and plastics, for example. So it is decreasing, but we need to concentrate, or we need to focus beyond the scope of household waste and into the industrial and agricultural waste, which are a significant potential source of mining potential for materials, but also they have a particular impact on our economy as well, because we have things such as runoff from agricultural waste, and then the vast considerable proportion of waste that's landed up in the site outside of Derry is basically from commercial industrial as well. So we need to actually put value into that, and by segregating out more materials and by improving how we manage those wastes through innovation, various other bits and pieces, that will continuously shrink. And it has to, because if the 70% figure is adopted, well, then we have to move beyond what we've set at the present moment in time, and that's for 2030, sorry, I should say as well.
Thank you, Chair.
Is that only a dream to say zero waste, that we aim for zero waste? Can we ever achieve that?
Well, if you don't start walking towards it, you won't, I suppose, is the honest answer to that question. So
yeah.
Like everybody, if everybody puts their shoulder to the wheel, we'll be considerably further down the line in 5 years. That's all I can say. I wouldn't make a prediction that we'd ever get to zero waste. But I mean, who's to say? 100 years ago, if anybody had told us we'd all have mobile phones in our pockets, we would never have believed them. So I'm a firm believer in yes, we can, but we have to start walking towards it.
Yeah. Okay. No more questions? Everybody happy? Well, thank you very much, Martin. We certainly look forward to visiting the two sites. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
One is a previous nuclear site. Is that Vittel?
It's Swage Fears. It is actually a civilian nuclear facility.
Okay.
What they actually do is they train radiologists and various other ones how to actually use it. Therefore, because of its sensitivity, we have requested certain bits of information.
Okay.
Obviously, the
But in terms of personal protection, we didn't need to.
No,
we
you
need to wear plastic gloves and.
There'll be no photographs of you in a big plastic suit and a big vest. No, it's perfectly safe. People go to there all day, but it does throw up an added complication insofar as we have to get our security cleared before we go in there.
Sure.
And they won't all of a sudden disappear or vanish when everything is protected.
No, it's not that form of waste management. No.
Not much of us could be recycled anyway. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Recycled or not worth recycling? What's it?
It's the same thing, I think.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you then next month.
Okay, take care now.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay, members. Very interesting. There's something to be thinking about for future years. Yeah. Okay, members. Let's then move on then to the next item. We have another briefing, and this is the Road Traffic Amendment Bill briefing by PSNI. Members, you have the PSNI submission at page 188. Okay, clearly setting out the different clauses that they commented on. If I can welcome Inspector Rosie Leach.
That's right.
Hello, Rosie.
Hello.
And Superintendent Jerry Murray. So you're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, and we certainly have your paper with us. If you want to talk us through that.
Okay.
And then afterwards, members will ask you questions.
Okay. Yes, I've a few issues that I wanted to talk about. To date, there have been 58 deaths on Northern Ireland's roads this calendar year. That's one more tragedy than the same time last year. Those 58 fatalities compare to 41 in the same period last year. Sorry, clarify. 58 this year, and last year for the whole of the year we only had 57.
Yeah.
So 58 compared to 41 for the same period last year. Motorcyclists, we've seen 11 motorcyclists die compared to 6 in 2013. We've seen 6 pedestrians killed last year, and that has risen to 14 this year. And the only road user group we're seeing a drop in is cyclists, who have fallen back to 1 death this year against 4 last year. However, the overall trend in relation to killed and seriously injured collisions and casualties continues to fall. We've had fewer people seriously injured and fewer slight injuries reported. This road safety bill provides an opportunity for the Assembly to bring some innovative ideas into practice in an effort to mitigate the risk posed by and to some of our most vulnerable road users. However, it would be remiss not to highlight those areas where we as the enforcement body feel the measures either don't go far enough or could be achieved in a different way. I'm aware you all have sight of the most recent response from PSNI, and I don't propose to repeat all of our comments therein, but I would like to elaborate upon some issues that bear fuller discussion. The proposal to deal with lower-level drink drivers by means of a fixed penalty notice is of concern because of the apparently unwieldy process that will have to be followed, particularly in the case of the non-compliant recipient. The additional administrative burden this will place upon police is considerable, further complicated by the fact that we will be innovators in this regard. There is no existing model or computer software already in existence. So on top of the already significant costs we will face in procuring new breath testing equipment capable of testing at the lower limits and at the roadside, we also faced software development costs. Our preferred option would be to impose a shorter duration of disqualification with no requirement to retest at the end. Omission of the statutory option from the bill is a significant issue for police, particularly in light of the lower blood alcohol limits. It is our contention that the old safeguard required in the past has been superseded by advances in technology that should support its removal. After June next year, Northern Ireland will be the only country in the world to retain the statutory option. Practically, it will mean that the lower-end offender, who we detect as a result of our new random powers, is likely to fail a preliminary breath test, but in the time it takes to either bring them back to a custody suite or get a roadside device brought to the scene, their level will be falling, and we then find ourselves required to take blood or urine. The doctor is then summoned, which also takes time, and ultimately, when the sample is obtained, the subject is now under the limit. The police patrol has been off the ground for 1, 2 or even 3 hours simply because the machine isn't trusted to be right. If the committee were to recommend this issue be reviewed, I believe it would be a relatively simple matter to reinstate this provision. We are also concerned that if cases occur as above, public confidence in the police's ability to deal effectively with drink drivers may be adversely affected. I am aware that there's been some discussion about creating one limit at the lower level of 20 milligrams, and it has been mooted. However, I wish to state on behalf of police that we do not favour such a move. We fear it would distract and detract from the focus upon the higher range drink drivers. It is important that we are seen to exercise our powers in a proportionate manner while prioritising attention to high-risk offenders, and it is equally vital for public confidence that we are not seen to be swamped by the number of drivers barely over the limit, thereby testing our capacity to enforce. And moving on to the issue of roadside access for police to driver licence records. PSNI have been in discussion with the DVA about accessing their records in order that we can determine what type of driver we're dealing with and have the driving licence photo available to check identity. We need to know, are they a vocational driver or a novice driver? Have they any previous drink driving offences or other fixed penalty points on their record that would dictate how we deal with them? As it stands, there's no argument that police should have such access. It's purely technical obstacles that are proving to be a stumbling block, and it currently appears unlikely that access will be achieved before 2016. So when it comes to enforcing the novice driver provisions, it is going to be vital that police can properly determine who is actually driving. We must also be able to ascertain passenger details, but in a manner that doesn't damage community confidence or lead to accusations of heavy or uneven-handed enforcement. The PSNI is in agreement with the ethos of the passenger restriction provisions, and we feel they have the potential to make a significant contribution to reducing death and injury amongst this vulnerable group of road users. We must ensure that our officers are properly equipped to exercise this power. Those members of the public involved, that they have the means to comply with the legislative requirements. Whilst we welcome the proposed measures, we must ensure that they work in practical terms. So this concludes my prepared summary of the issues the police wish to highlight, but happy to take questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. That's very useful, really, rather than just say you support, different clauses. I did read through your submission last night. Can you elaborate a bit more? You didn't have it very much in your submission about reinstating this. This is the testing,
statutory,
is that right?
Yes, statutory option.
Can you say a bit more on that? Obviously, the committee can ask for amendment.
Yes.
So, can you tell us more a bit on that one? Yes.
As it stands at the moment, you'll know that the measurement of breath that we use is 35, and the statutory option only applies whenever we're taking an evidential breath sample. So it currently sits at 35. Anybody who blows 35, 36, 37, 38 or 39 is protected in law. It's protected in the legislation, and we will not enforce against those individuals. However, when they reach 40 to 49 as they're reading, they currently have this option to elect for a blood or urine sample to be obtained, and that goes away for analysis to verify the machine reading.
Okay.
In practical terms and in reality, what happens is that we very often have to call a forensic medical officer, call a doctor to the custody suite in order to obtain that sample, because blood is generally the option that is elected for. But as you've no doubt heard from your previous submissions and some of the expert testimony you've had in the past, alcohol is all the time falling away in the body. The body is metabolising it, and the level is dropping all the time. So that by the time the doctor arrives to take the blood sample from a person who is at that stage only marginally over the limit, they're likely to be under the limit. So we've actually had significant police time taken up bringing a person to the custody suite, processing them, waiting for the doctor, only for the net result to be that no prosecution, and the person walks away because of the time gap. So that statutory option, if it's causing a significant impact at 35, you can imagine that if we're going to be operating at limits of 22 and limits of 9, which are the breath equivalents to the blood, if we're going to be operating at those levels, to have to maintain a statutory option, you know, the chances are we're never going to catch anybody, particularly at that level of 9, because you're always going to be in the position that you've got to then arrest that person. Even if you have roadside testing, even if we're operating roadside testing and we're doing everything absolutely efficiently in terms of you know, time and resource, even if we have roadside testing and we test that person at the roadside and they come back close to that 9, that figure of 9, and it won't actually be 9 again, there'll probably be that little bit of additional points added in, we'll have to arrest that person, bring them back to the custody suite, waiting for the doctor to say yes, they're fit for me to take blood from them, and all the time the alcohol level's dropping, and we end up with no prosecution as a result of it.
A waste of police time.
A waste of police time. The devices now, I mean, that margin and the tolerances, that was really 2 tolerances and 2 margins that were put into law and procedure back 30 years ago when the devices were very new to the market. But we've now had 30-odd years of you know, very clear evidence provided by these devices, and the operating procedures of the devices have been tested at every court in the land, and you know, we're totally reliant on them, and it seems perverse not to take their reading.
Okay, so you're saying that we should do away with that statutory option?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Right, we'll need to talk to the departmental officials on that.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for clarifying that. Yeah. Cal? Yeah.
Thanks, Chair, and I do apologise for not being in part of your presentation. So, just for clarification, so you're saying, because I think the committee generally in good faith are looking at, you know, the reduction to 20. So you're saying to us now it causes more problems for you? Then?
You're saying that you're looking at 20 across the board. I think it would cause us considerable problems.
You know, because I mean,
certainly if it were, sorry to continue, certainly if it was brought in with statutory options still in place, it's, my goodness, well, you know, we would be.
No, but yeah, I'm seeking the clarification that I was saying, what you're saying, I'm taking, you're asking your opinion in this matter. You're saying if we remove the statutory, the limit as is fine, or if we remove the statutory and move down to 20 as well, that's...
Well, when we say 20, oh no, I mean, we're absolutely in agreement. We're absolutely in agreement with the reduction as proposed by the department to reduce to... now, we talk about breath and we talk about blood. I think it all gets very confusing, but we're absolutely in agreement, you know, to reduce to 50 milligrams of alcohol to a typical driver and 20 milligrams of alcohol to a novice or vocational driver.
Okay, that's grand. No, because I know, sorry I missed the start of
No,
the
it's fine.
presentation. Just one clarification on
The
that.
2 levels will be one for a specified driver.
Yeah.
And the specified driver will be, the categories will obviously be the novice driver, the learner driver, but also those in authority, for instance, taxi, bus,
Yes.
and hard coach.
Oh, no, that's grand. That's fine. Thank you very much for the clarification. In terms then of, and obviously there was great debate in the chamber when we talked about the quads and the helmets.
Yes.
Now, my own personal view on it, you get no second chances. I mean, if you're on a quad and you go out, fortunately have an accident and get a bang in the head or crack in the head, in most cases there's no second chances of serious damage.
Absolutely.
I take it your opinion is you would support the idea of, I mean, I know some of the cases were made, you know, they're in one field, they go across the road into another field, but I mean, clearly, reading your briefing paper, you certainly would be in support.
Yes. And subsequent to that briefing paper, I don't know if anybody saw a young lady, Rebecca Glass from County Tyrone, who was on the news recently, having suffered a head injury when the quad she was on cartwheeled, and that young lady is left. And I don't know that the news footage, I didn't see it, but I'm not sure that the news footage really did justice to the disability that she has been left with. It really is tragic, and for want of a helmet,
Absolutely.
I don't think there's any argument about it.
Saves your life.
Yes.
Full stop.
Yes.
Not from
Or
serious
preserves
injuries.
your quality of life.
Sure, and that's on the bill. We're only talking about the bill at the minute. Yeah, sign, that's grand. Thank you very much.
Okay, Pam.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. Another very interesting presentation. Just on the restrictions on the novice or professional drivers, I'm just thinking in the instance of, say, taxi driver maybe operating from his own vehicle, but he's not working. But how does he prove that he's not
working?
What level would it be at? Any thoughts as to how that might work or not work?
Yes, I think you're right that could be operating from his own, and there are taxi drivers out there who are not compliant, let's be honest, and who don't put their roof sign up, etc. So it will be a question then of trying to ascertain, did they previously have a fare, where have they come from, and it will be about observations and so on, but hopefully in conjunction with the taxis legislation that is inching its way forward, we'll be able to hopefully cut down those numbers of illegal taxiing, and I think it will be apparent then whether people are working or not at the time.
You would be quite reliant on the taxi legislation actually going through to clarify some of those points.
Some of those, no.
Yeah, okay. On the maintenance of a logbook, and your submission is very helpful, thank you. And you talk about being a sensible suggestion. Again, and you're asking too, just how effective will it be? Because there's going to be a lot of grey areas. There could, it would appear to be quite an easy thing to forge. If you're simply looking for, I'm not saying that parents would be irresponsible, but I'm sure there would be some parents who would just happily fill it in and sign it off or whatever. And how would that work out as well? How could you have confidence in the logbook if it could be easily filled out?
Well, I think it's probably something that the driving instructors, and I mean I go and talk to the approved driving instructors at their forum, and they're very much for a lot of these measures, and I think that the driving instructors would probably be happy to play a part in this, in that they would ask to see the notebook at each lesson, and I appreciate there'll be children maybe who are young people who aren't having continuous lessons going forward, but I think there is an expectation that 90% of our, or maybe more of our population are law-abiding and do want to comply with what's required of them. So it leaves us with that small number that we need to try and focus on and encourage them to complete it properly. I think it is probably more for the department, and it'll be more for their testing authorities to try and gauge whether the book is being properly completed.
Yeah,
And the logbook would be for a short duration,
yes.
you know, of 24 months. It's not as if the logbook would be continuous, you know. So to go to that extent of fraud for a short period, whatever the expense may be, may deter. And as the Inspector said, the majority of people on the roads are law-abiding.
Yeah. Okay, and finally, just on photographic ID issue, and you know how you prove age ranges, and you know if you're looking at 14-year-olds, they're not going to be carrying ID. I don't even know if any such thing exists for that age group. Also, you mentioned too, you know, ascertaining step relationships when surnames are different. You know, there seems to be quite a bit of detective work will need to be required to actually enforce
Yes.
that kind of legislation.
We do have some concerns, but I don't want to be overly negative about it, because you know, we do see it. We see the carloads of young people, and unfortunately, you know, when they're together, they just can't turn the volume down. They just can't, you know, everything's full on, and the inexperienced driver is distracted by the chatter in the car, by the music in the car, and all of that, you know, is into a very toxic mix. And you know, we've had over the years just too many collisions occurring with, you know, full carloads of kids. And I do think that the principles and the ethos behind it are very sound, and I think that there are some operational difficulties we'll have to work through. And the department and ourselves have been having discussions about that, and we certainly do bring our views very much to the fore with them, and we let them know about the practical difficulties that may you know, be encountered. But they are determined to try and find a way to get round that.
Yeah. But so overall, you'd be, that sounds very much in favour of passenger restrictions.
Yes. It's only for a short period. It's only for 6 months, and it is to allow those young drivers to gain some experience when they don't have that supervising person beside them, to get that experience driving on their own, because we know from statistical research and studies that very quickly their skill level rises to the level of the general population, and that they cease to become, you know, or to be that high risk driver. Within less than 24 months of passing their test, they are level with the rest of the driving population.
And if you look at the statistics, 2008 to 2012, there are a low 10% of our population, driving population, are young persons. We've had 43% of people between the age of 17 and 24 in that period, 2008-2012, killed. And if you look at, we've been looking at some. If you look at the Swedish model there, as the Inspector said, once they get past the 2 years, their expertise in driving increases, that they become sort of the norm. So it's just that 2-year period, really, from the time that they have got a licence to the 2 years is the main factor that we're worried about.
Okay, thank you very much.
And there will be issues, there will be problems. It won't be plain sailing, but
Yes.
we'll be able to work through them with the department.
Okay.
But the law will help to change public attitudes.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes too, young people are under pressure to take a lot of friends. Oh, you've got the driving license now, you've got a car, you've got to take us to Donegal.
Yes.
You know, and I think, and parents then can say, you know, no, you only allow one
Yes.
friend to go with you. I think, you know, it's changing that attitude, and you know, and then reducing it. Then gradually people know you're not allowed to do it. Don't do it.
And the other pressure is that as soon as you've got your provisional licence, is to get your test. From the minute you get your driving provisional licence, it'll be 12 months before you're even tested. You know, so the enthusiasm will be, how can I say, controlled
Yes.
You know, although you'd be getting the driving licence earlier at 16 and a half, the minimum time before you actually sit your test would be 17 and a half.
Yes. But ultimately, it's the skills you're testing. You're not dependent totally on the logbook to say whether they're allowed to sit the test. It's, you know, on the day, how they drive, what skills they have, you know, what experience they demonstrate during the test, I suppose. You know, that's one way of looking at it. You're going to have, you know, quite a difficulty to say, you know, to try to check every logbook whether they're, you know, all genuinely filled in or not.
Yeah.
Chair.
Okay. Cassandra? Yes.
Thank you very much. It's been very interesting. Someone keeps saying this, but I'm new to the committee, so I'm just getting my head around all these things. And actually, Pam had mentioned what I was concerned about. Someone from a rural constituency passed my test 5 weeks after I was 17. I was very proud of that. But, you know, those are the sort of things in the rural community. You really need your car to get young people around, especially in young farmers clubs. And, you know, they might have a very active social life, but a lot of it's very serious stuff as well. You know, a lot of public speaking competitions and group debating competitions that go on. So, you know, young farmers might get a bad name, but they're
not. I was a young farmer. I understand. I understand.
They're
exactly.
on my side.
I am
Thank
on
you
your
for
side.
that. but you know,
what's that?
No, we're just continue, because I want in on that point, but continue, yeah.
Okay, so we do want to help our young people, but we don't want to restrict them on necessarily either, and it just really, I suppose, I was just wondering if you have other suggestions. You know, I appreciate how difficult it is to enforce the passengers and, you know, the ID, etc., but have you other ideas?
Well, there have been lots of other ideas that over the years we have done all sorts of landscape reviews and looked at some of the measures that have been taken in other parts of the world. But for one reason or another, those have all been ruled out. Nighttime curfews, that doesn't seem to be acceptable, and you know, there's been other suggestions over the years, and trying to come up with something that isn't unduly or prohibitively expensive, maybe to deliver. You know, be it further training after they pass their test and so on. And you know, none of those suggestions to date have been acceptable. So, but I think we need to come back to the fact that, you know, by far the majority of our KSI collisions, or killed or seriously injured collisions, are occurring on rural roads. And whilst it's not, you know, that the young farmers are you know, peaking in fatality numbers, but certainly young people in rural communities are, and there is that reliance, absolutely, I understand, on cars, and everybody's very impatient at that time of their life and want to get their test and get on the road. But it is about trying to, as the superintendent said, it's about trying to just, you know, if they're learning over a longer period and you're building up the skills, and that excitement of getting your test, it can be moderated a wee bit. You know, it might all help with. Having said all that, you know, we are seeing that young people and their involvement in fatal crashes is coming down, and it is dropping. Why that is, I mean, whether it is something to do with the testing regime, whether it is that they're, you know, wearing their seatbelts more, or the cars are safer, or, but it is, I mean, I have the figures, but you know, you don't want to be bored with all of this, but I mean, you know, 216 injuries resulting from collisions involving drivers under the age of 25 last year, but that's down from, you know, a baseline figure of 428, you know, in the mid 2000s. So it is coming down, but I think it's, you know, beholden on us to look for ways of improving that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
And with rural driving too, it's all sorts of other risks factors, so narrower roads,
yes,
more bends, poor lighting.
Yes.
You know, and then on top of inexperience. And
See, as a rural driver, I would say the opposite.
Yes,
There's so many different risks when you're coming into the city. I know people that won't drive to Belfast.
from the rural area.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
But over the 2 years, it's about training and education. It's about keeping them focused on the highway code, learning about having control of the vehicle, and also the braking distances. So repetitively, they're returning back to the highway code. Whereas in my day, you did the highway code until you were asked the 3 questions on your test, and after that, you never looked at it again.
Well, there's a lot of people could learn about braking distances coming down the motorway in the morning.
It would help
Anyway,
too
that's another
to
matter.
hopefully to reduce insurance for young people, because the rate of insurance for young people under 25 is just so prohibitive.
But I think that actually it may end up being that some of the measures that I had mentioned about nighttime curfews and so on, those may be financially. Young people may be driven to self-impose those curfews upon themselves because insurance companies are offering discounts for if young people, if you don't drive at night time and you don't, they have identified risk things. So, I mean, I think the black box technology has been adopted by quite a number of young people, and they are getting significant discounts on their insurance, and that all works to our benefit.
Well, but the nighttime driving, they have to do it at some stage.
Yes.
You can't ban them forever.
No. Again, it's only 6. It would only be 6 months.
Yeah. Okay. Well. 2 more. Lord Morrow.
Yes, thank you, Inspector. 58 road deaths. Obviously, this figure's going the wrong direction. I listened to a senior police officer comment in there about 10 or 14 days ago, following another fatality. And I think he cited 4 reasons for this. 1, driving under the influence, not wearing seat belts, speeding and driving without due care. I'm hoping I'm not misquoting him, but I think that was what he cited. Of the 58 road deaths this year, which is the same, 1 more than
the whole of last year.
How many of those road deaths are alcohol related?
I'm sorry to be not in a position to answer that, but I'm not in a position to answer that as yet because all of those investigations are still either under investigation for criminal charges or for the coroner.
What about last year's then? Did you say 41 in total last year, or
57 last year?
Yeah, I do have it here somewhere. Last year there were 14 people killed where at least one person involved was over the legal blood alcohol limit. So that was 14 out of a total of 57. So it's a quarter.
Now, I noticed that you were very specific in using the word the legal limit.
Yes.
How many? Maybe it's an unfair question, but
it is an unfair question because I can't.
I think you've anticipated what's coming, haven't you?
Can't tell.
Right.
Can't. I mean.
Well, I think then it tells us something again. That one, we're still losing this battle of you don't drink and drive. At least I think that anyway. And somehow we don't seem to be able to get that message over. Now, can you tell us then in relation to age groups, because we've been concentrating here considerably on a certain age group, can you tell us anything there?
Yeah.
Good.
Well, what I would say first of all is that saying that we're losing the battle there is not necessarily representative of the facts. Of all the preliminary breath tests we conduct, which vary sort of between 35,000 and 45,000 preliminary breath tests a year, approximately 8% of those tests carried out result in a failed test, i.e. somebody over the limit. So 92% of drivers are heeding the don't drink and drive message. And by far and away, the vast number of people breathalyzed below 0. There's then a few percentage points of people who have some alcohol present, but not enough. to be over the limit. But by far and away, so for example, last year, 25,000 people blew zero. 430 failed to provide. We had 1,350 who passed the test, 182 who were borderline under but below the limit, but we warn them, and we would advise those people not to continue driving, for they don't know if their alcohol's on the way down or if it's still rising. And there were 2,941 people who failed the evidential breath or the preliminary breath test.
You do a blitz around Christmas time.
Yes.
Are you breathalyzing all drivers that are stopped?
No, we're not breathalyzing all drivers because we don't have those random powers as yet. We have to either suspect alcohol, we have to have witnessed a moving traffic offence, or they have to be involved in an RTC.
Because, I mean, I was going to say that I've never been breathalyzed in my life, but...
Because we would have no reason to suspect.
Well, I've certainly...
See how well we apply our powers?
I must say, you do show great discretion. And, in relation to the driving instructors, I think they have moted the idea of reducing the age to 16 and a half for driving. How would you feel about that?
So, learning to drive.
Yes,
the learning to drive, starting to learn to drive.
Yeah.
I don't see any significant disadvantage to learning at 16 and a half as opposed to 17. There doesn't seem to be, in the United States, there's quite a number of states where they can start at 16, and I think even a few maybe lower than that.
Australia too, I think,
and,
16.
There's no significant risk factor between a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old there. Equally.
In relation to those, again, learner drivers and restricted drivers, how many of them would have been involved in any four of the issues that that inspector talked about? Not wearing seat. I must say, I was surprised to hear that people do not wear seat belts.
It is
starting to creep up again.
Yeah, I think one of the issues and one of the reasons that the DOE did their advert was because of the police observation that, yes, you may do your surveys and come up with a 96% compliance rates and seatbelt wearing, but that's done during the daytime in urban areas. That doesn't take account of nighttime driving in country areas where you maybe have more passengers than you have seatbelts. Never mind the fact that the kids in the back don't want to wear their seatbelts, or adults in the back don't want to wear their seatbelts. So we've seen it this year. We have seen fatal road traffic crashes where the car occupants have been expelled from the car, and that's a clear indicator that they have not been wearing their seatbelt. They would probably have survived if they had. It doesn't cause the collision, but when it goes wrong, there's no protection.
And I've seen you have now a repeat of quite a few of the adverts on television of not wearing seatbelt, the consequences of that.
Yes.
Chair, I want to ask, but I'm not going to do
difficult
around the limits, these 35 to 39 figures and 40 to 49, and but I'll refrain because time's gone.
Okay. Sorry, Pam, you want to come in there?
Yeah, Chair, could come in just from another couple of things. I did mean to ask you about the drink driving, and I believe that most of the drink driver offenders are caught the morning after.
No, absolutely not. Not most, not by a long stretch. No.
Okay, I'm trying to remember where we got that from. I think that was from the people who actually did the course.
Yeah.
Not they wouldn't say most. They really couldn't have said most people are caught the morning after. That's patently not true. It may be the wee small hours, it might be 5 or 6. Yes, it is possible.
Yes.
It's possible.
Yes.
Absolutely, it's possible. Yes. And we have detected people the morning after. But I don't want to overplay it or overstate it at all. It is mainly...
It'd be good maybe for us to look back on that presentation or evidence session, because I certainly got the impression they were talking about, they said most or the majority of the people who come to them were caught the morning after.
No, I don't think they said majority, they said some. It's the time taking to reduce your blood level.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you drive until 4 o'clock in the morning,
Yes.
and then go out to work 7 o'clock,
Yes.
Maybe,
then
maybe
you
it's,
still.
maybe it's, sorry, could I just intervene? Maybe it's because their level of blood alcohol in their blood is less over the limit, so they have the opportunity to go to that course more
Possibly.
so than someone who's caught the night before, because their level's higher. Would that be the case?
No, it's, well, the course is open to everybody.
Is it?
who's,
Right, okay.
Yeah, convicted of.
Voluntary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and my last point was just to talk about, you know, Ms. Sandra said about driving to Belfast and the difference in different type of driving, but it's very difficult to drive now as a young person or an adult without feeling very pressured to drive faster, because most people around you are quite aggressive, I find, in cars and driving. You know, they're driving too close to you, up behind you. They feel like you're not going fast enough, even though you're maybe sitting at the limit. There's an awful pressure now on everybody to drive faster than you should,
Yes.
because everybody else around you wants.
Everybody,
Do
I think
that.
everybody is feeling the pressure of modern life and squeezes and being asked to do more at work, and that pressure spills into behaviours, and everybody's trying to multitask and check their Facebook while driving, doing all these foolish things. But I think that the learning to drive agenda, where we're proposing, or the proposal is that young people will be allowed to train on dual carriageways and drive at higher speeds, and that they won't be restricted to 45 miles an hour. I think that is all
sensible.
really positive and really sensible. And you know, I think that's the giving. You know, we may be taking away some permissions for a short time, but we're giving other permissions to them. So.
I suppose not really an appropriate question for you anyway. It's probably more for the department. You know, are we doing enough to try and ease off from that pressure and get if everybody just slowed down a bit, it would make an awful difference on all the roads. And I don't think people wouldn't feel the need to drive so fast if everybody was driving a bit slower.
Well, that is what we do try to do, and the safety camera does try to do that, and the education course is about that as well. And people do seem to take that message on board.
No. Too close, I hardly know you.
Thank you.
Okay. Just want to come back on the question Pam asked about proving the young passengers' ID. Don't you answer that? So you were saying, you know, that not all 14 to 20-year-old would have an ID with them in the car, and then how can you prove that the person
Yes.
you asked to come in later on the police station is the same person?
And as I say, I really don't want to be negative about this, because you know the department and ourselves have worked and discussed these provisions a lot. But picture the scene. You know, you have a young driver, and he's got 3 or 4 people in the car with him, and you ask him who he is. Got his licence with him? No, I don't have my licence. Doesn't have to carry his licence.
No.
I'm Billy, and I'm 20, and I'm out of my probationary period. He's not Billy at all. He's me Jimmy, the younger brother, but he adopts his brother's identity.
Yes.
And we give him a producer, and we say, produce your driving licence at your nearest police station inside 7 days. So the big brother goes along, produces his driving licence and says, I was stopped the other night.
Yeah.
And who's to say that's who was stopped and that the restrictions didn't apply? And so that's why the access to the driver licence record at the roadside, we have all these electronic devices that we can view, we should be able to view the record, view the photograph that is supplied when they get their driving licence.
Okay.
And we say, you're not Billy, you're Jimmy, and you're restricted and you're still a novice driver, because I have it here, you passed your test on. And we're able to properly ascertain that in terms of the passengers, we would have some concern. And I think we will win that. It's just taking a bit longer than we would have liked, that roadside access. The issue of the passengers and how we identify them is something that isn't resolved yet, and how we establish relationships to them.
Okay. So it'll be until 2016 before you can get that roadside access?
That appears so. The DVA are creating a new computer system that will allow that access to be more readily delivered.
Yes. And young people, it's so difficult to tell their age,
Yeah.
whether they're 17 or 21.
Correct.
Girls, when they have makeup on and they look immediately like 21, 22, and they're only really 50. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much indeed.
Chair, hold on, Chair.
Oh, there's Cal wanting to come back. Sorry, Cal.
Yes, thank you very much, because I thought we were dealing with the bill first, because this is a most important part, and I requested at the meeting last week that you come along and deal with the 58 road deaths as well. And it's very, very concerning. And whilst I agree with you in terms of all the access and all the things you've said about Wee Billy and everything else, I'm sitting here looking at the document that states the figures here: 16 65 pluses were killed this year, 23 25 to 64, and 16 16 to 24. And there's Billy in front of me, and I'm very, very concerned. And it would be, as road safety spokesperson for the party, I'm very, very concerned that the message seems to be not getting through. In the round, we've had a discussion there for 10 minutes, and members have asked very serious and important questions. But I am very, very concerned about that number, because we've spent millions of pounds over the last number of years. We were doing really well in getting the numbers down, because when you're standing in a crowd of 100 mourners outside a house where a young lad at 18 years of age has been thrown out of a car, that's the reality. And
Absolutely.
whilst I do agree that some of the elements we're bringing forward in this bill will help, I am concerned that maybe, or the reality of it is this: we need to re-look again at what we're not getting the message out. And the 58 road deaths tells me somehow, some way, we need to look at something different.
Well, when you look at and that's not to decry, where we are this year, and it is really poor. It's 58 too many. But looking at the trends in killed and seriously injured, it is moving down. It's moving down in a steady line.
It is, yeah.
A steady downwards trend. The good year that we had 2 years ago, that's the blip. That's the blip. That's the dip. Some of those deaths, it's on a knife edge. It's on a knife edge as to whether they survive or they die. We had a good year, but we would attribute that good year to a lot of other external issues as well. It's not all about the advertising. It's not all about the policing. It's not all about those things that collectively we're doing. The economic environment has a part to play. I mean, we know anecdotally that some of the rural towns where the young drivers would have gathered in the car parks in the centre of town and done their procession round the town and sat and revved their engines and so on. That stopped. That stopped 3 years ago because nobody had they had no money to fuel their cars. They were even selling their cars. That problem melted away in some areas. So there's an issue with the miles travelled, that people are travelling maybe more slowly to conserve fuel, that there is there's fewer commercial vehicles on the road, and all of those factors come into play whenever we're looking at the trends. And there's been scientific and academic research done into this that would indicate that is one of the significant factors at play. So, our really good results, those are the blip. The downward trend is there, and we're working collectively to try and keep pushing that down.
Weather conditions, I'm sure, would play an important role. Weather conditions?
Weather conditions, but what we generally find is that when weather conditions are benign, that is when people don't take the care.
No, and I agree with you, and certainly we did do well for a while. What I am concerned about is, and all the things we've talked about, and you can talk about the drink driving and everything else, you will get the stats at the end of the year. Unfortunately, I thought you may have had them today, and I don't want to put you under pressure. The speed, due care and attention are still the major things. Yep. I'm looking at E-District, which I'm concerned about because it's down my own area, 15 road deaths. But we'll still come back to this rural issue, unfortunately. Are we still saying it's rural roads, mostly late in the evenings or weekends, and how we can bring that to bear, you know what I mean? And I have to state on record as well, the random tax and all, for other reasons we're a wee bit concerned about it from a party perspective. I'm not the principle of stopping people for the reason of drink driving, but for other reasons we're slightly concerned about. Conditions may not be right about that, but that's what I wanted to ask you about, how in terms of the rural roads, the weekends issue, the advertisement doesn't see, it's already showing advertisement, nobody wearing a seatbelt or somebody using a phone, but in all of that we're still
we are using a number of avenues to try to get to everyone within Northern Ireland. But if you look at the map of Northern Ireland, you look at the 58 deaths. It's scattered. It's like a scattergun. If the majority of deaths were happening in E-District, your district, then we're putting more proactive marked and unmarked vehicles there from a roads policing unit there to identify through. Here are the causes. This is what we're looking for. This is the specific drivers we're looking for. But it is so we have only so much. We've limited resources to use over a maximum time period to get into areas. Now E-District is climbing, and we're putting resources to it. But at the same time, is when we go up to look up towards Derry, we see that there's a climb starting there. So you can only put now behind us as the arrowhead from a roads policing branch, our coming district. More and more district are being trained on the laser, being trained with regards to looking for the areas which specifically would have been RPU, roads policing unit there, the speed. We are putting layer upon layer. And we have even the cross border. We've been to meetings with our colleagues across the border there, and we've now introduced three cross border operations, specifically with seatbelts, speed, detection of alcohol, and inattentiveness through the mobile phone. But we are addressing it in 58 deaths. It's too many deaths, and we just have to hopefully that the message will get through. And those who are the hardcore, small as they are, and the majority of motorists that are on the road are law-abiding. It's just picking them and dealing with through prosecution.
Well, maybe part of this discussion, the message, will get out. And that's why this is the first time in a long time we have an opportunity to talk to yourselves in relation to it. I do think, unfortunately, I have to use the stick approach.
Absolutely.
For a period of time.
Absolutely.
There's no carrot in it. Unfortunately, it's not working.
Well, that is why ACC Martin was, I think, the gentleman that Lord Morrow was referring to, who has gone out very publicly saying that, folks, the gloves are off here. We are going to enforce, and that is what you should expect when you're stopped. Don't expect to be given a discretionary disposal or advice and warning. It will be enforced.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Inspector and Superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any comments you want to make on the briefing? We'll just kind of record those, and when we meet with the departmental officials, we'll bring these forward again.
Yeah, Chair, maybe it wouldn't be a bad
very
idea,
good
maybe in light
comments.
of this meeting, and maybe putting out a wee statement on behalf of the committee. Just a few words on what we've done today, and maybe in terms of road safety or something we can.
A press release?
Yeah.
That you could, well, it'll maybe next week, or I could send it out round and a draft.
Certainly,
of it.
it is a serious issue. We haven't had that type of discussion for a long period on this here on the committee, and I think it is concerning.
What should be put in the press release?
Expressing our concern.
Yeah, expressing concerns. We took the opportunity today, obviously, to a briefing in relation to bringing forward a piece of legislation that will help and lead to, better road safety or whatever it is. But if you put something along them lines, certainly, I mean, it's not a bad, may not be a bad thing, you know what I mean?
Okay. We will put out the press release or a joint press release with Cal Committee about next week too, wouldn't we?
Well, I wasn't planning to. Do you want a press
That'd be
release on
nice.
that?
I mean, unless the committee members have any other, I mean, I don't mind if you don't. If you don't wish to do that, I mean,
that. Yeah.
I think it may be appropriate, just that's all.
Yeah, sure. Okay, it's a serious issue.
Yeah.
Wrecks lives.
Yeah.
Okay, members, next item, correspondence at page 191. There's a table there for members. Just want to highlight a few items at page 194. That's the letter from the All Party Group on construction. The APG is concerned that departments are not keeping information on the infrastructure investment strategy, POTO, up to date. So members, are you content if we write to the department and ask what steps are being taken to make sure the information is correct and up to date? Because people go and check on, you know, what they can apply for. And okay. Next item, right, any other items that members want to raise on that table of correspondence? And is that format good?
Yes, it's
easy
good format.
to look at, yeah.
I would just, maybe, could we go back to the department on the programme for government information they've provided? It's just some of the information doesn't seem to be very specific, even though there's specific targets. The responses are not very specific.
Yeah, we talked about that before, didn't we? Yeah, quite right, Pam. Yes, we'll do that. Yes.
Page 222.
222. Yes, quite right. Yeah, thank you, Pam. Page 223. Is that right? That's on page 223. Yes, that's on. That's on.
Progress reports.
Yeah. Yeah, that just don't seem to tally. The departmental report on their objectives and achievements on programme government. Yeah. Okay. Forward work programme is on page 276. Members, you content on the work programme?
Great.
Yes,
okay. NOAA AOBs, and just to remind member, next week. Then we are going to sort, and then the following week we'll be meeting on the 9th. Is that right? It'll be Thursday week, 10 o'clock in Senate Chamber. Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, members.
Thank you very much.